Well, good day. This is Rod, Appraiser Broker, and just thinking about something that I think should be mentioned, both for appraisers and real estate agents and brokers. I've been an appraiser for 29 years and been a broker for 27, and there's something that goes on in the industry that people just need to be a little bit cautious of. So, as an appraiser, I went in homes. I tried not to go in homes unless they were completely vacant or unless somebody was with me. And wanted to tell you a little story because I had an inspection, I should say. I have a client's property listed, and I've got properties listed. Here's one of my properties over on UtahHorseProperty.com. I've got another property that is listed. It's actually a property over in Orem, and this particular property, someone called me to do a home inspection on the property, and I should say the buyer's agent asked about getting a home inspection done, and I told him that the home inspector needs to call me. Appraisers need to call me if they want to go into one of my homes. They need to call me so I can discuss the property with them, and so that I know who's going in when, and that they have my permission to be going in, because I'm responsible for that client, that property for my client. My client's trusting me to know who's going in and out of that property, and if I need to tell them, hey, don't let the cat out, or make sure that you lock everything back up, whatever the situation is on that property, whatever things they need to know. For example, on this property, my clients spent $30,000 to $40,000 having the electrical upgraded, having basement windows cut, having a new furnace put in, having a new water heater put in, having a new AC unit, you can actually see that right there, put in, having a new carport put in, having a new patio put on the back. And we want to make sure that whoever goes in that property is going to lock everything back up. But anyway, I get an inspection this morning, and to be kind to the home inspector, I'm not going to show you who this home inspection was done by, but I did speak with his secretary. For all I know, it was his wife, whoever I spoke with several days back, and I said, the inspector needs to call me. I said, who's going to be the inspector on that? Let the inspector know they need to call me to have permission to go in. And in this case, it's a case where the buyer's agent did not go in the property with him, and in that case, there needs to be some very precise communication between me and my clients, regardless of what they're used to. And I'm going to give you an example of one of the reasons why. Several years back, I appraised a property for a client, and it was one of these homes. I'm pretty sure it was either this home up in Highland. And let's see, this property was listed for $1.1 million, and I appraised it for someone that was contemplating buying the property. Pretty sure this is the one, the property that it was, but we look at this, it's a pretty fabulous property, right? And when I got there, the homeowner said, oh, you just go ahead and go through the house. And I said, well, I've got a policy that I don't go through people's property unless, when I'm appraising a property that's full of personal belongings, unless somebody is going through with me. Otherwise, sometimes I'll go through a bank-owned property because there's no one from the bank, and sometimes the agents representing a lot of those clients don't want to go out, refuse to go out and meet you there, and but they don't feel a need because the property's empty. Nevertheless, this is probably the property that I appraised years ago, and the homeowner of the property that I appraised, whether it was this one or the other one down the street, said, oh, you just go ahead and go on through. And I said, no, I'd like you to go through with me. And she goes, oh, that's not necessary. And I said, well, it is, because I've got a policy that I don't go through people's properties that are full of personal belongings unless someone goes through with me. Well, we went through that whole property, and when we got up to the master bedroom, we heard a big crash to the floor. Now, whether that was a big vase, a mirror, or a picture, but we heard glass break, and it was a big crash, and we were up in the master bedroom when that happened. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we both, I said, there's not anybody in the house, right? We just went through the whole thing. And she said, nope. And I said, wow, I'll bet if I wasn't with you, if you weren't here with me, you'd probably think that I was responsible for whatever just broke. And she said, you're right. And that is one person that understood the reason for the policies that I have. And I can't imagine if she hadn't been with me, what would have happened, but I certainly would not want to be falsely accused for breaking something, let alone taking something that I didn't break or take. And appraisers and real estate agents need to be aware of this. When somebody goes through our properties, this is a property of one of my clients that's listed for sale. I don't let, someone wanted to see this property the other day, and it was a buyer that actually wanted to represent himself. Well, he's not a licensed individual, and just like the home inspectors aren't licensed, and I'm not saying everybody needs to be licensed, but I will say that when someone is licensed, a lot of them value their license, and they want to keep it, and they don't want to be in lawsuits. Well, this man that wanted to see this property, he did not want to have a real estate agent representing him, but I'm representing the seller of this property, and so I took him to see that property. I met him over there and went through the property with him, and he spent well over an hour at the property. And I'm not representing him. I'm not getting paid to represent him, but I am getting paid to represent this homeowner. So if someone's going to be going through a property that you as an agent represent, it's a really good idea to make sure that either your client, the owners of that property, say, yeah, that's okay to have the home inspector go by himself. If they've okayed that, that's just fine. But otherwise, if you're opening up that property, whoever's going to go in that needs to have your permission to go in, or they need to be with you, or they need to be with someone that you've given permission to be there. And so this is a really important thing to think about, to be aware of. I will tell you another little story. A few years ago, I listed a property, and it was up in Alpine, Utah. Now that particular property, we're going to go back and look at some past listings, and I don't know if that's going to allow me to do that without editing what I'm looking for, but it was actually and maybe we don't need to go to that right now, but it was a property up in Alpine, Utah that I'd listed for sale. And someone went up to, I should say, my seller on that particular property moved out, and they moved to Texas and left that property vacant. They had a moving company come and move everything out of there. Well, I had the same rules that I do for my properties, and that is no one's to be in my properties without permission from me or the owner of that property. And a neighbor called me and asked me 2 days later if they could see the property. I said, you bet. What time would you like to see it? And I'll come up and show the property to you. Well, I went up there, and there was a thunderstorm. It was raining. It was really pouring. And as I went past my client's home, just to the next door neighbor, I saw a truck backed up into the driveway. And I thought, what on earth is that there for? My client's down in Texas. No one's called me to be in my property. So I thought I better go back, and I went back, pulled in the driveway, and as I got out of my car, I heard something moving across the cement. Sounded like a washing machine inside the garage. And this truck was backed up to the garage with the garage door shut. I went around to the side door, and as I pushed the side door open, I cocked my fist back, my right fist back, and pushed the door open with my left hand. And lo and behold, I surprised somebody, and he actually looked like a pretty tough guy. To me, he looked like a little college wrestler that, even though he was smaller than me, I thought, he looked like a pretty tough guy. But I had my fist cocked back, and he saw that, and I said, who are you? And he said, oh, I'm here to measure the carpets. And that didn't make sense, because I knew the house had new carpets in it. I pushed the door a little further, and I saw my client's stainless steel stove he was dealing with it and had actually, had it there in the garage. It had been moved out of the kitchen through the laundry, and this guy was a tough enough guy that he was taking the stove out by himself. Where he was going with it, I don't know, but he didn't have permission to be taking my client's stainless steel stove that probably cost in the range of $1,500 to $2,000. When I saw that, and he saw that I saw it, I said, "Who the hell are you?" And he said, "I told you, I'm here to measure for the carpets." I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket and went to dial 911, and as I did, he pushed past me as quick as he could and ran out to his truck, jumped in, and I followed him out in the rain, and he jumped in there and started up. I got in front of his truck to try to take his picture, but it was raining too hard, and then he pushed on the gas and started moving, and it made it very apparent that if I didn't move, I was going to get run over. So I ran back in, and interesting, but I guess that fight or flight circumstance that happens to us sometimes in life had me shaking so bad at that point, even though I had been acting kind of tough. I was shaking so bad that, and with all the rain on my phone, I couldn't even dial 911 and had to dry my phone off and get to where my finger wasn't shaking, where I could dial 911 and call the police. And they ended up finding out the truck didn't even belong to him. It had been borrowed. And I spent hours there. Had to get the stove back into place for my clients, and the police came, and I ended up, signing some things to press charges really for my client. And they told me that 95% of the people were unwilling to even do what I was doing to testify against this guy. I ended up showing up to court 3 different times to testify against this man who'd been stealing this stove. The first time he didn't show up. The second time he fired his public defender attorney. And the third time he finally admitted that he was stealing the stove. And all I wanted him to do was admit that so that he could, I just wanted him to change his life. I didn't want to see him go to prison or anything else, but just admit that what was happening, and so that this man who's had 4 or 5 children and a wife wouldn't go to prison. I just wanted to see him changing his life. In fact, I was praying for him almost every day, and certainly hoping that he wouldn't come and knock me off so there wouldn't be a witness over a stove. But I want to see people change their lives. I've certainly had to make changes in my life, and made many mistakes in my life. I'd forgive anyone of anything, but sometimes things have to happen. Sometimes action has to be taken to get people to change the things they're doing that can hurt other people. Anyway, I share those things with you, whether you're an appraiser, a broker, or those are the people that asked me to do an appraisal for him years ago. He's a wonderful orthodontist, and anyhow, this is Rod, Appraiser Broker. Keep these things in mind. Protect your clients, yourselves, and just take precautions. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. And this is Rod, Appraiser Broker.